The old cemetery on the outskirts of town was always a place of quiet reflection where the living could come to pay their respects to the dead. But one night, a group of teenagers decided to explore the cemetery after hours, looking for a thrill. As they made their way through the rows of gravestones, they noticed that some of them had strange symbols etched into the stone, symbols that they couldn't quite place. They laughed it off, thinking it was just a prank, until they reached the oldest section of the cemetery. There, in the center of a circle of graves, stood a crypt that looked as if it hadn't been touched in decades. The iron gates were rusted shut, and the stone walls were covered in moss and vines. The group dared each other to open the crypt, and after some hesitation, they managed to force the gates open. As they entered the crypt, the air grew colder, and the flickering candlelight barely illuminated the darkness inside. The walls were lined with shelves of coffins, and at the end of the room, there was a sarcophagus with the lid slightly ajar. They approached it, curious about what was inside. Suddenly, the lid of the sarcophagus slammed shut, trapping them inside the crypt. They pounded on the walls and gates, but they wouldn't budge. And then they heard it, the sound of footsteps approaching, slowly getting closer and closer. The group huddled together, terrified, as the footsteps reached the crypt. They could hear breathing, and then a voice whispered in their ear, "You shouldn't have disturbed my rest." The group screamed as the lid of the sarcophagus opened, revealing a figure wrapped in a shroud. It stepped out and began to approach them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The group tried to run, but the crypt was too small, and they were trapped. The last thing anyone heard was their screams as the undead creature claimed its latest victims. And the next day, when the cemetery groundskeeper found the crypt, it was as if nothing had ever happened. But the legends of the cursed cemetery and the vengeful undead lived on, and no one ever dared to enter again.